According to General Hospital, GH teasers, Britt Westbourne, Kelly Thibault, may display her stubborn side and defy Lucas Jones, Van Hansis, warning. Britt recently proposed another technique to steal her medications, namely injecting Pascal, Mark Forget, with sodium pentothal, but Lucas declined. If Britt knocked Pascal out before he could provide her customary treatment dose, she could seize the vial for reverse engineering. However, Lucas rejected Britt's suggestion because it was too hazardous. In reality, Lucas forced Britt to put the syringe away because he didn't like the thought of her carrying sodium pentothal. For Lucas, it was a recipe for disaster. If Britt follows through on her plan, it appears like a disaster is on the horizon. Britt will have excellent cause to do so, as Marco Rios, Adrian Anchondo, isn't going to come through for her in the way Lucas hopes. Although Marco pledged to help and appears to mean it, GH spoilers predict he will encounter a stumbling block. Pascal may be an issue now that he has instilled such suspicion in Lucas and Marco. It's likely that when Marco attempts to steal a dose from the last known location of the vials, Pascal will appear and wonder what he's looking for. Pascal might point out that Britt's medication has been relocated somewhere, leaving Marco in the dark about the new hiding place. Regardless, Marco will finally meet up with Lucas and realize there is an issue. Britt will eventually rely on Jason Morgan, Steve Burton, for assistance, thus she will undoubtedly be disappointed by the setbacks. Will Britt decide to take matters into her own hands and reconsider the sodium pentothal idea? It wouldn't make sense for the writers to bring it up unless Britt intended to try it. With that in mind, Britt may be ready for Pascal the next time he prepares to give her an injection. Pascal may have learned from his mistakes after being accosted by Anna Devane, Finola Hughes. Perhaps Pascal will be stronger and more aware than Britt expects. Pascal could end up overpowering Britt and injecting her with sodium pentothal. On the other hand, someone like Lucas or perhaps Carly Spencer, Laura Wright, could appear while snooping. It's easy to see one of them attempting to intervene if they see a syringe struggle taking place. There is a possibility that Britt's syringe will be poked into someone else, resulting in an unintentional victim, one who may become a hostage at Wyndmere. Of course, it is feasible that Ross Cullum, Andrew Hawkes, or Jen Sidwell, Carlo Rota, will just capture Britt after she injects Pascal. That would still place Britt in a difficult situation and might have catastrophic ramifications. According to General Hospital spoilers, Britt's backup plan will undoubtedly fail, so keep an eye out for any bad news. Britt Westbourne is bound in a web of desperation that becomes tighter by the day in the shadowy halls of General Hospital, where secrets linger like the faint scent of antiseptic. Her sickness, a never-ending affliction that necessitates exact, discreet treatment, has forced her into an uncomfortable alliance with forces far more dangerous than any she has encountered before. Jen Sidwell's clandestine project at Wyndmere has become her jail, doling out dosages of her life-saving drug under careful supervision, always just enough to keep her functioning but never enough to provide her freedom. Pascal, the cool and efficient provider of these injections, enters as if on cue, reminding Britt that her life is hanging by a thread that someone else can manage. Britt has never been one to sit back and let fate decide her future. Her history is characterized by daring maneuvers, calculated risks, and a fiery independence that frequently verges on recklessness. When the withdrawals begin to gnaw at her, tremors in her hands, fog over her brilliant mind, she realizes that waiting for rescue is no longer an option. Lucas Jones, her cousin and a doctor with a heart as strong as his medical ethics, has become her confidant during this experience. He pays close attention as she explains her strategy during one of their private chats in a quiet nook of the hospital. She produces a syringe containing sodium pentothal, the truth serum and sedative that could knock Pascal out in seconds. The plan is straightforward and audacious. The next time Pascal administers her dose, she will turn the tables, inject him instead, take the bottle, and flee with enough medication to analyze and recreate it herself. Lucas' reply is fast and forceful. He shakes his head, his eyes wide and concerned. "No, Britt. Put that away. This isn't just risky, it's a disaster waiting to happen." He outlines the consequences in measured tones. Sodium pentothal dosage is unpredictable, especially if not properly monitored. An overdose may stop Pascal's heart. Too little, and he could wake up in the middle of the deed, alerting Sidwell's guards. Worse, Bringing such a chemical about the hospital attracts questions, investigations, and possibly criminal charges if detected. Lucas advises prudence, assuring that he and others are working on a safer method to ensure her supply from Windermere. He has access, after all. He lives there, observes the routines, and is familiar with the dark places where secrets are held. But Britt's patience has worn thin. The pain of dependency gnaws at her pride, and the prospect of what Sidwell may do if her usefulness fades scares her more than any imminent danger. She nods as Lucas speaks and tucks the syringe away, but the plan solidifies in her mind. She tells herself it's just a backup plan, a last resort in case his attempts fail. But she knows she can't keep waiting indefinitely. Days blend into a tense rhythm of hospital shifts, fleeting glances, and whispered reports. Lucas pressures Marco Rios for additional information, trapping him in moments of vulnerability and demanding the truth about the medicine that keeps Britt alive. Marco, divided between loyalty to Sidwell's scheme and real concern for Britt, tells Lucas that diving too deeply may endanger him. Knowing too much puts a target on your back, Marco replies quietly. But Lucas, motivated by familial ties and a doctor's desire to heal, refuses to give up. He begins scouting Windermere surreptitiously, determining where the pills are stored and timing the guard patrols. Meanwhile, Britt's resolve strengthens. She practiced the process in secret, seeing how quickly she could uncap the syringe and aim for the neck or arm without hesitation. She rationalizes it. Pascal is not innocent. He is participating in her incarceration. One quick action could change everything. She imagines the relief of having a full vial and the triumph of outwitting Sidwell. Lucas' cautions reverberate, but she dismisses them, believing that her approach is faster and safer. The moment arrives sooner than anticipated. Pascal enters the room where Britt is kept under medical surveillance. He prepares the injection with his typical detachment, smoothly pulling the liquid into the syringe. Britt's heart accelerates as she hands her own syringe, which is hidden in the folds of her garments. As Pascal leans in, she strikes quickly and precisely, the needle piercing his flesh before he can react. His eyes widen with surprise, then glaze over as the sodium pentothal takes effect. He slumps forward, and the vial slips from his fingers. Britt grabs it, her hands quivering not from withdrawal, but from adrenaline. With her heart hammering, she pockets the medication and takes Pascal to a chair, propping him up to appear to be resting. She slips out, hoping to hide in a safe location and analyze the sample. However, the plot unravels almost quickly. The drug's effects on Pascal's build are shorter than expected. He stirs, groans, and alerts a nearby guard. Alarms sound gently, but loud enough to summon reinforcements. Chaos erupts. Britt rushes along the corridors, clutching the vial tightly, but she is cornered at an exit. Sidwell's men close in, and during the scuffle, the syringe used on Pascal is uncovered. Worse, amounts of sodium pentothal were found in his system, indicating an assault. Britt is restrained and carried back, her prize confiscated. The effects cascade, her access to medication is further curtailed as punishment, and her condition rapidly deteriorates. The hospital board, already suspicious of her absences, launches an investigation. Lucas arrives too late, finding her weakened, defiant, and withering. The tragedy worsens as Britt's stubbornness isolates her even further. Lucas had come close to making a breakthrough, convincing Marco to divert a dose and preparing a stealthy extraction, but her rash conduct shatters that delicate trust. Marco withdraws, fearful of being exposed. Sidwell, angered by the breach, tightens security at Windermere, preventing Lucas's searches. Britt's condition deteriorates. Convulsions hold her, her vision fades, and she experiences continual discomfort. She lies in a hospital bed, ironically under the care she formerly controlled, regrets not listening to Lucas' appeal. In calm moments, Lucas sits by her side and holds her hand. "I told you it was too dangerous," he says quietly, his voice shaking. Britt gives a feeble smile. "I know. But I couldn't wait to die slowly." Their strained but unshakable friendship becomes the one bright spot in the darkness. Lucas promises to fight harder and expose Sidwell's operation, but the harm has been done. Britt's body diminishes, and her sharp mind is dulled by sorrow. The ripple effects extended across Port Charles. Whispers spread about the incident, which involved an attempted attack with a controlled narcotic and is tied to mystery medical research. Sonny Corinthos, ever attentive, sees a chance to undercut Sidwell. Despite his physical absence, Jason Morgan hovers in the minds of allies as they explore severe measures. Britt's mother, Liesl Albrecht, arrives enraged, seeking explanations, and her own plans collide with the catastrophe. Britt mulls over her options as the monitors continue to beep. She had always taken pride in her ability to exert control, to manipulate rather than be influenced. However, by ignoring Lucas's reasonable advice, she ceded power to tragedy. The syringe, which was supposed to save her, ended up killing her. What began as a desperate struggle for independence ends in tragedy. Prolonged suffering, shattered relationships, and a sobering warning that even the most astute minds may stumble when pride takes precedence. As her condition deteriorates, those who care for her come together. Lucas works relentlessly, assembling evidence against Sidwell. Marco, overcome with guilt, delivers critical information in secret. Even Pascal, who is recovering from the ordeal, wonders his role in the conspiracy. But for Britt, time is running out. The catastrophic ramifications of that one ignored warning unfold slowly and cruelly, demonstrating how a single act of defiance can upend lives in ways no one expects. In the end, General Hospital serves as a microcosm of human fragility, where love, devotion, and desperation collide, often with tragic consequences. Britt's experience serves as a warning tale. Sometimes the biggest danger comes not from opponents outside, but from a stubborn refusal to listen to those who genuinely care. The syringe disaster is etched in memory, a watershed moment in which one woman's refusal to wait resulted in far more severe effects than any withdrawal could have. The corridors of General Hospital had always been filled with murmurs. Secrets flowed faster than stretchers, and anxiety lingered beneath the antiseptic scent like a living creature. On this particular afternoon, the air felt thicker, imbued with something fragile and threatening. Britt stood alone in her office, staring at the syringe in her quivering grip. It was hardly the first time she had held one. Years of practice had made her movements precise, almost mechanical. She knew the dosages from memory. She had kept her hands steady in trauma bays and operating rooms, where seconds could be the difference between life and death. But today was different. Today, the syringe felt like judgment. Her reflection in the glass cabinet door was pale. Dark rings surrounded eyes that had once shone with defiance. She had battled so hard to restore her job, respect, and position at the hospital. Every step back to dignity has been uphill. But lately, the rumors have reappeared. Lucas was the only one brave enough to address her directly. She heard a harsh and cautious knock on her door. "Come in," she said, hiding the crack in her voice. Lucas went inside, softly closing the door behind him. Before he said anything, concern was written all over his face. "Are you still here?" he inquired, glancing at the clock. "It's past your shift." "I know how to read time," Britt said, his defensiveness leaking through. He ignored the tone and stepped closer. "I went over the labs. What about patient 304? The dosage you requested is larger than the typical practice." Britt's jaws constricted. "He's not standard." "Britt, don't," she ordered. "Don't say it like that." "Like what?" "Like I don't know what I'm doing." Lucas inhaled carefully, attempting to prevent the conversation from escalating. "I am suggesting you have been pushing yourself too hard. You've handled 3 difficult cases in 2 days. You hardly slept last night." "I'm fine." "You're not." Silence hung between them, fragile and heavy. Lucas softened his tone. "We both understand what stress can do. We have seen it. You do not need to prove anything to anyone." Her eyes blazed. "That is easy for you to say. You are not the one always being criticized for your past mistakes." "I'm not judging you," he added calmly. "I'm worried about you." The words remained. Britt's willpower weakened briefly. She pondered putting the syringe down, checking the charts again, and listening. Then pride rushed in. I've triple-checked the numbers, she claimed. Go home, Lucas. He studied her expression, evidently unconvinced. Promise me you'll review it again before administering anything. I promise, she answered swiftly. Even as she spoke, the promise seemed empty. Lucas paused, then nodded grudgingly. Just be careful. When the door shut behind him, Britt's shoulders dropped. For a brief period, she let the mask fall. Her hands shook even worse now. She returned to the chart on her desk. The numbers were blurry. She blinked, attempting to focus. She had calculated the medicine based on the patient's weight, but she had done so while juggling 2 sheets and a phone call from administration challenging her most recent budget proposal. Had she made any adjustments for renal function? Of course she did. She always did. Hadn't she? Her heart beat quicker. No. She couldn't spiral. That was exactly what everyone expected her to do. Lose control. Make mistakes. Confirm their doubts. Britt has never been weak. Across the hall, the patient lay agitated. A middle-aged man is recovering from an intense infection, and his body is already stressed by complications. Britt's treatment choice was daring, some would say risky, but potentially life-saving. She grabbed the syringe and went to room 304. The nurse stationed outside gave her a slight nod. Doctor, how is he doing? Britt asked quickly. Vitals are stable. People are still reporting severe pain. Britt entered the room. The sufferer looked up with watery eyes. Will it help? Yes, she replied confidently. You're going to feel better. She used steady hands to inject the drug. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then the monitor started to shift. The beeping accelerated. Doctor. The nurse's voice became sharper. Britt glanced toward the TV, her stomach plummeting. Heart rate increases. The oxygen saturation level is dropping. That's not possible, she said. The sufferer gasped and clutched at the bedding. Call the code. Britt said, hurrying to reposition the 4. Alarms sounded along the hallway. Within seconds, the room was filled with workers. Lucas came into the door, his eyes wild. What happened? He's reacting. Britt's voice broke as she checked the amount on the syringe that remained in her gloved palm. Her blood became chilly. Adjustment for renal impairment. She had not recalculated. The dosage was excessively high. Britt, what did you give him? Lucas demanded. She didn't respond. There was no time. Epinephrine. Someone called. Lucas took over compressions as the patient's pulse weakened. The hectic rhythm of emergency operations pervaded the room. Orders were barked. Medications were administered. Sweat beads on the foreheads. Britt remained frozen for a half-second too long. Britt. Lucas snapped. Focus. She jumped back into action and began to assist automatically. But as they toiled, a dreadful understanding crept into her chest. It was her fault. After seemingly interminable minutes, the monitor settled into a frail but steady cadence. The patient was alive. Barely. Relief spread throughout the team, although it was tinged with stress. Lucas slowly removed his gloves and stared at Britt. What have you given him? She swallowed. Ceftriaxone. Double strength. His eyes expanded. You didn't adjust it. It was not a question. No, she whispered. The room became abnormally quiet. The nurse exchanged anxious looks with another staff member. Lucas moved closer, lowering his voice but not his passion. I warned you. I know. You promised me you'd check it. Her composure broke. I thought I had things under control. That is not good enough. The words resonated uncomfortably. The hospital administration arrived in minutes, alerted by the code and the rapid-fire reports circulating around the building. An incident report would need to be submitted. An investigation would ensue. Whispers might spread like wildfire. Hours later, Britt sat alone, but not in her office. She sat in a small administrative conference room, sterile and stuffy. The syringe was sealed in an evidence bag on the table. Lucas stood near the window, arms crossed tightly. "You could lose your license," he stated calmly. "I know. Why didn't you listen?" "Because if I let every doubt stop me, I'd never practice medicine again." He turned towards her. "There's a difference between doubt and recklessness." "I wasn't reckless." "Then what was it?" She struggled to find words. "Exhaustion? Pride? Are you afraid about appearing incompetent?" "All of it," she confessed finally. Lucas' expression softened, but it did not undo the damage. "The patient is currently stable," he said. "But if there are long-term complications..." She closed her eyes. "I understand." The possibility of discipline did not scare her the most. It was possible that, deep down, Lucas was correct. That she'd gone too far in trying to prove something to colleagues, critics, and herself, and had crossed a line. The next morning, rumors circulated throughout the organization. Some were sympathetic. Others were merciless. "She's always been unstable," a voice whispered through a thin wall. "Doesn't surprise me." Each word hit like a blade. Britt walked the corridor with her head high, refusing to show them her fracture. But inside, cracks were appearing. Later in the day, the patient's condition worsened. Secondary complications from the overdose started to emerge. His kidneys struggled. His blood pressure fluctuated irregularly. Britt watched from the observation area as specialists discussed the next steps. She was not allowed to participate. Administrative leave is pending review. The humiliation burned. Lucas approached her cautiously. "He's fighting. Because of me." "Because of the infection," Lucas corrected, his tone uncertain. "You made a mistake. It does not undo everything you've accomplished." "It might." For the first time, tears welled up in her eyes. "I ignored you," she admitted. "You were right." "I didn't want to be," he explained. Their friendship hung in the balance, strained but not broken. The investigation became more in-depth as the hours and days passed. Paperwork was piled high. Statements were recorded. The dosage logs were scrutinized. Britt replayed the moment over and over. The hesitation. The pride. The decision to avoid double-checking. If she'd paused for another minute. If she had allowed Lucas to review the chart. If she'd admitted to being overwhelmed. The patient's condition eventually stabilized, but the road to recovery was long and uncertain. Permanent damage remained a possibility. Britt paid him a quiet visit when he was allowed to, offering a silent apology that he could not fully hear. Lucas discovered her there one afternoon. "You don't have to punish yourself forever," he said gently. "I do," she responded. "No. You must learn from it." She faced him. "What if this is who I am when the pressure builds up? What if I hurt someone again?" "Then you step back before it gets there," Lucas insisted firmly. "You ask for help." Her voice crackled. "I hate needing help. That does not make you less capable. It makes you human." The board made its decision a week later. Temporary suspension. Mandatory review. Upon returning, you will be placed on clinical probation. It could have been worse. However, it still felt like a judgment on her worth. As she packed up her office, putting personal stuff in a tiny box, she halted at the location where the syringe had once been in her grasp. Such a little item. Such massive implications. Lucas waited at the door. "You're not alone in this," he stated. She nodded slowly. For the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had occurred, not as rebellion, not as self-destruction, but as responsibility. "I almost destroyed everything," she murmured. "But you didn't," Lucas answered. "And you won't again." She wasn't certain he was right. But, for the first time, she wasn't convinced he was wrong. As she went out of the office and into the unknown world outside the hospital doors, Britt realized a harsh truth. Disregarding advice had harmed more than just one patient. It had pushed her to confront the delicate balance between confidence and arrogance, strength and tenacity. The implications would haunt her for a long time.